What's going on, guys? Super Insane 18 here, and today I am bringing you an updated Spright deck profile post Darkwing Blast. Now, it really hasn't changed that much, but we did get the addition of Sprind, and Sprind is kind of the replacement for Ronin Totem that we needed because it does let you have a new one-card Elf Totally Awesome combo, which I will show you guys at the end of the video, so make sure you stay tuned for that, but let's go ahead and show you guys the build. So we're going to start things off with the sprites. We are playing one copy of Carrot, one copy of Pixies, and this time we are only playing one copy of Red. Now, if you've watched my videos in the past, I've said that I believe that 2 Red is the just objectively correct answer. That's just my personal opinion, and I do still believe that. Unfortunately, I somehow managed to lose my other Spright Red, and even though it's a common, I don't have another. So I'm only playing 1 for now until I manage to just get somebody to hand me another Spright Red. But I do think you should still be playing this at 2. My reason behind that is if you do get Dark Rulered and you have a Spright starter set, you can use the Spright starter to summon your second copy of Red, and then you at least have a monster negate ready to go. So I do think that this should be at 2, but for now, since I only have the 1, we're playing it at 1. Kind of sad that I can't find another common, but it is what it is. Then we are playing 3 copies of Spright Blue and 3 copies of Spright Jet. That is honestly just the correct, this is standard. I don't think you would play any less unless you're playing some other kind of Spright variant, but for like Pure Spright or Adventure Spright or anything like that, you're definitely going to want to play 3 of each of these. And that's it for the Spright monsters. We're going on to the frogs. We are still playing 3 copies of Swap Frog. Swap Frog actually gets a little bit better because of Sprind, because Sprind forces you to play other waters, which means you can open the Swap Frog and the water, and if that water happens to be the Nimble Angler, then you are even better off because that's just absolutely insane. I still kind of want to play the dupe, but there really just isn't the room for it. Then on to the next package, we have 1 copy of Nimble Angler and 2 copies of Nimble Beaver. Now, this is something that is relatively debated on what the correct ratio of the Nimbles are. And personally, the reason we're playing such a small Nimble count is because this is an adventure version, so you can't really normal summon your Beaver, so you don't want to see the Nimbles. But if you're not playing adventures, I believe the correct ratio is 3 Beaver, 2 Angler, and you might think, why would you want 2 Angler? That's just kind of bricky. But the reason is because if you open one of your 3 Beavers and you normal summon it, you can summon out your second Angler, and that leaves the rest of your Nimble package live, because you'll turn the Beaver and the Angler into your copy of Sprind. Sprind will send the second Angler that is in your deck. The Angler that was sent off of Sprind summons the last 2 Beavers, and that is your entire Nimble engine in play. So I do think that that's probably correct if you're not playing something like Adventure. But I can understand not wanting to see it because they are bricks, but you do have to keep in mind, like I mentioned with the Swap Frogs, if you see the Nimble Angler in your hand, you can use Swap Frog to abuse it heavily. So let's say you open just the Angler and you didn't open your Swap Frog, but you still have a way to get into Gigantic. You can use Gigantic to summon out your Swap Frog. Swap Frog can return itself to your hand with its own effect, and then you can summon it by discarding the Nimble Angler, and the Nimble Angler will then activate summoning 2 Nimbles from your deck, so opening it isn't the end of the world, which is why I think running it at 2 of is okay. But that's if you want to play the full package, which again would be 3 Beavers and 2 Anglers. But that is it for the Nimbles. Now we have 3 copies of Kashtira Fenrir. Now, Kashtira Fenrir is honestly probably the best card out of Darkwing Blast, if you ask me. This card is absolutely crazy. Not only is it free extension going first, but if you don't need it as free extension, you are able to just leave it on your end board as another form of interruption. Not to mention the fact that this card is a 1-card answer to a lot of issues in the format. So let me give you guys 2 examples really quick and then we'll move on. Fenrir by itself outs a 4-material Appaloosa, and the reason why is you would special summon it, which does not activate, so it cannot be negated. And then you would use its effect on field to search another copy of itself. Its search effect does not prevent it from searching itself. So now the Appaloosa has a decision to make. Do they negate the effect to search and not let you get more materials in your hand or more fodder in your hand, or do they just let it go through? And either way, this 1 card is going to out the Appaloosa, because if they negate it, the Appaloosa goes down to 2400 attack, you enter battle phase and attack, activating its effect to then banish. Now they have to make the choice of, do they let their Appaloosa get banished, or do they want this destroyed, or do they not want the Appaloosa to get banished? If they negate the effect to banish, the Appaloosa goes down to 16 and you swing over for 800. And now let's do the other scenario where they don't negate the search. Now they're at 3,200. If you just swing into the Appaloosa and activate the effect, they are forced to use the effect to prevent you from banishing. That brings the Appaloosa down to 2,400, which will match the Fenrir. They will crash, and then in main phase 2, because you searched another Fenrir, you can special the Fenrir because the special summon effect is not once per turn, and just continue on with your board. Now, the other example is actually, this also can out a elf and a toad, because you can special it, again does not activate, so the toad cannot use it to negate. At this point, you would just enter battle phase. They are likely going to use the elf to recur something like the blue, so they can maybe search Spright Pixies if they're playing it, but then that leaves you in main phase. Now you can activate the effect to search, and they might want to negate it. If they do, they negate it, and now they use the toad, they tribute the toad. They can't use the elf anymore because they already used it for the blue, so you just got rid of the toad. You still have 5 cards in your hand, you're still in your main phase, and yeah, it's just a pretty good time. I think that this is a mandatory 3 of in every deck moving forward, but that's enough on the Fenrir. Let's move on. We are still playing the Adventure engine. We have 3 of the Water Enchantress and 1 of the Wandering Griffin Rider. I think that this just adds a lot of needed pressure for the deck, especially with a lot of people being on a lot of hand traps now. I'm still of the opinion that board breakers are better than hand traps in the current format, but a lot of people are still playing a ton of hand traps, so using this engine not only potentially baits a hand trap, but also makes you immune to certain others, so I think it's really important. And that is it for the monsters. Onto the spells. We obviously have the spells that are required for the Adventure engine with the Draco back, the Fateful, and the 3 copies of Right. And that's it. That's the standard Adventure. Then we've got 1 copy of Called by the Grave, 1 copy of Foolish Burial, and 1 copy of Spright Smashers. Now, this is just the typical one-ofs that you need. Called by the Grave is just an insane card. Foolish is not only good for your Adventure engine now, but you can use it to send the Nimble Angler as well and summon 2 beavers. So if you really brick, which is kind of hard with this deck, you can at the very least send something like the Nimble Angler and get 2 level 2s on board, which is all you really need for full combo. Smashers is Smashers, not much needs to be said. We are playing 3 copies of Dark Ruler in the main. Like I said, I'm of the opinion that board breakers are better than hand traps, so I think having this is kind of mandatory, just because there have been a lot of games that I've seen and a lot of games where it's happened to me, where you just hand trap your opponent multiple times and they still set up their full board. Any one of those hand traps being a Dark Ruler would have just turned off the board, so you might as well have it. We have 3 copies of Spright Starter. I think that this is just absolutely crazy as well. Not really needs to be said. It's an E-Telly for the deck, and why wouldn't you play that? Then we have 3 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. This kind of falls in line with a board breaker, as well as just being additional extension for yourself as well. If you get hand trapped, you can use it to either rip a card out of your opponent's hand if you still have full combo, or to draw 2 more cards hoping to get into the combo. But not to mention, if your opponent goes first and they activate a monster effect while you're trying to play, you can just take control of one of their monsters, and depending on what their board is, that could be devastating and just help you break the board outright, so I think it's really incredible. And then the last card we are playing, I don't want to play this card, honestly, but because I can't find my other red, we are playing it, and that is going to be Spright Double Cross. Now, on paper, Spright Double Cross sounds really good, but honestly, I just think it's never worth searching this over Smashers. Like, if you have the option to search one or the other, I feel like Smashers is just the stronger option. Yes, it doesn't have interaction with the graveyard, which is an argument that can be made, but I did play this at the sneak peek tournament that we had, and honestly, I sided it out every game. It just was never really relevant, so when I get my hands on another Spright Red, I'm just taking this out for the Spright Red, but that is the main deck at 40 cards. Let's show you guys the extra. And onto the extra, there's not a lot of changes from the last profile, but we're going to show you guys anyway. So we're just going to kind of go through it really quickly. We've got the 1 copy of Cat Shark, the 1 copy of Soul Sweeper, and the 1 copy of Sky Cavalry. These are just some of the best generic Link 2s. Not much needs to be said. We do still have our 1 copy of Totally Awesome, which is really easy to make now with the Spright Sprind. I will show you guys that after the extra deck. Then we have the 2 copies of Gigantic. You can't really play less than that. And then we have 1 copy of Zeus. Now, we're not actually playing Downard because there isn't enough room, but I still think that Zeus is really important, especially for, like, if your Gigantic gets stopped, or if you have to go into Sky Cavalry to get rid of a problem card. Zeus is still a very strong option for your end board, so I think it's worth still playing, even though we're not playing the Downard. Then we have 1 copy of Dark the Dark Charmer, 1 copy of IP Masquerena, and 1 copy of Nightmare Phoenix. These are just the generic 2s that I feel are mandatory. With Tyr and Spright being the best 2 decks, Dark just has some added added luxury to it. IP is part of a combo where if you can't make the Toad, you still end on IP Elf. And Nightmare Phoenix, I've been back and forth on this card, but a person that goes to my local said, as soon as you get Gozen matched, you're going to regret not having it, and I can see it, so it's still in here. Then we have our 1 copy of Spright Sprind. You really don't need more than that because after you use it the first time, you're never going to use it again. Like, there really isn't much to send off of this effect, unless there's something I'm missing, which if I am, tell me in the comments down below, but Nimble Angler seems to be the only level 2 worth sending off of the Sprind effect, so once you've got that in rotation, there's no reason for you to ever need to make another Sprind again. Then we have our 2 copies of Spright Elf. I know that a lot of people are on 3 of this, but as much as it, like, sounds good, and there have been a couple of times where it's come up, I feel like 2 is perfectly fine, and honestly, like, I can't fit Dark in the extra deck if I play a 3rd elf, and I feel like Dark is just a little bit more important than a 3rd elf. Then we have our 1 copy of Nightmare Unicorn. This is partially for the IP, but the real reason for the IP is the Topologic Zeraboros, the combo where you Elf Chainlink 1, IP Chainlink 2, make the Zeraboros, summon something to the Zeraboros zone, and just banish the field. I think it's really strong if you get stopped on your way to making Toad, or if you don't have what you need to make the Toad. It's a really good power option, so let's go ahead and show you guys that new Sprind combo. Alright guys, so here is the 1 card combo now that ends you on the same board that we used to be able to do before Ronin Totem got banned. So it starts with Starter. Let me go ahead and show you guys how it works. You just use the Spright Starter, and this is going to summon out your copy of Spright Blue. Spright Blue will activate on summon, which will add you your copy of Spright Jet. Here we will special summon the Spright Jet and activate its effect. It can search either another starter or a Smashers. It just depends on what the rest of your hand is, what you feel is going to be more important on the follow-up turn. For simplicity, let's just go ahead and say we search another starter, and this is so that, like, we can kind of be immune to something like Dark Ruler. But anyway, so now we have 2 level 2s on board, which we can go ahead and link off into our copy of Spright Sprind. And Spright Sprind will activate on summon, sending a level 2 from our deck to our graveyard. We'll activate the effect and send the copy of Nimble Angler. Nimble Angler, if it's sent from deck or hand to the graveyard, can special summon up to 2 Nimbles, so here we're going to special summon 2 copies of Nimble Beaver. Now we can take the Spright Sprind and 1 of our Nimble Beavers, and we can overlay them into our copy of Gigantic Spright. And we can use the Gigantic Spright effect to detach 1 and summon out the copy of Swap Frog. Swap Frog will activate when it is summoned, sending a 2nd copy of Swap Frog to our graveyard. And now this is why we are able to do a 1-card full Toad combo again, because typically if we don't have this extra body in the Beaver, if we link these 2 away, without Ronin we have no way of getting 2 Aquas on field. But since we have the additional body, we take the Gigantic Spright and the Beaver, and we go into our copy of Spright Elf, which leaves the Swap Frog on field. We can then use the effect of Spright Elf to reborn the Swap Frog that our initial Swap Frog sent to the graveyard, and now we have the 2 level 2 Aquas needed to make our Totally Awesome. And that is just the bare bones 1-card combo. Obviously the deck can get a lot crazier. I'm going to put a picture on the screen of a test hand that I did last night, just so you can see kind of the full power of what this deck can do, but that is going to be the new 1-card combo. And there you guys have it. That is going to be my updated Adventure Spright deck profile post Darkwing Blast. Now this is very early, so I'm sure I'm going to revise this more and bring you guys more content with it in the future, but you guys know the deal. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, comment, share with your friends, maybe consider supporting me on Patreon. For just $1, you can support the channel in a way that I would never be able to tell you how much I fully appreciate. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.